Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to NISA's weekly webinar on investment immigration programs around the world. We once again thank all our audience for being here and being some people that have come over several webinars. We hope that the webinar series is being informational as well as educational, and we're hoping that one of these programs is a solution for you. Ladies and gentlemen, NISA is hosting a weekly webinar series on every Wednesday at 3 p.m. We are a firm specializing in investment immigration, working in 27 countries and programs around the world. We will talk a little bit more about NISA, but once again, if you have friends and family that could be interested in one of these countries or programs, please encourage them to come for our weekly webinar. It's the same time every week, Wednesdays, 3 p.m. So today we're going to today's webinar is going to be on the UK ROOB visa, which is a very interesting category available at the moment in the UK. We'll preface that with an introduction about ourselves and a little bit about some of the other programs that are available around the world. So without further ado, let's start off our presentation. It is my great pleasure to introduce my partner, Mark Haseman. Mark and I have been partners in crime in this since the last 8-9 years. And Mark's an American. His background's in golf and development. Worked with Jack Nicklaus, one of the foremost golfers in the world, for over 20 years. Doing golf course and golf course-based developments around the world. He's done several dozens of projects here in Asia, including one in India, which is when he first came to India in 1993, which is the ITC Classic in Manesar near Gurgaon. Mark's done 2 of his own golf course developments, one of which is his home, and now he lives here in India in Gurgaon. Well, now he's been here all through COVID. So Mark and I have been working in investment immigration, and we've been very, very excited about this journey that we've had for the last 8-9 years. Mark, over to you to kick this off, and I'm going to turn off my video so that the bandwidth remains steady for the rest of the webinar, and I'll put it back on right at the end. Well, before we begin, Mark, just 1 second. Before we begin, I would like to just do some functionality instructions for our audience. Your active participation is very, very important for us. And although we are placing you on mute during the session for the benefit of everybody on the session, you do have access to a chat box where you can post in your questions. Throughout the presentation, one of the members of our staff will be managing the chat functionality, and you can enter your questions and comments, and we will address them if we can in a public forum, or if they're too personal, we do not address them, and we just note the name of the person and get in touch with that person right after, independently, individually. All right, good afternoon, everybody, and let's get started. Mark Haseman, over to you, turning off my camera now.
Thank you very much, Pankaj, for the introduction. I'm also going to turn off my camera and start into a slide presentation so that we can get sort of to the meat of the subject, and I'm going to do that so we can save a little bandwidth. So there we go, and if we could switch slides, that would be great. I think we've seen. So basically, we have 2 different types of things going on here at NISA: skilled and investment-based migration. Migration is as old as mankind itself. When we first roamed freely and settled wherever we found the best protection, shelter, and food. Today, the world's bordered. Each bordered country has its own socio-economic, political, religious existence, its own distinct culture. People born in one place often move to another place, across country borders. It's estimated that globally 250 million people live in a country in which they were not born. India itself has seen migration over hundreds of years. The Indian diaspora can be found in most every country on earth, in some cases going back generations. In the recent past, post-independence Indians have mostly migrated through foreign education pursuits leading to jobs in the new country, and ultimately becoming residents and citizens. This has given way to another popular trend, and that's of family-linked migrations, where a foreign citizen sponsors a sibling, a spouse, or a family member. You'll hear about that as we talk about this UK representative program. In the late 1980s, the world witnessed its first major structured investment immigration program as citizens of Hong Kong started to migrate to Canada in anticipation of the British turnover to China, a phenomenon still unfolding. Today, such programs avail in dozens of countries. We talk about different ones every week as they seek economic development in exchange for residency or citizenship. These programs essentially aim to attract foreign direct investment into the host country, and with it bring an upwardly mobile family that ultimately create even more economic value in the destination country, typically far in excess of the original investment that's required. Investment immigration programs have been popular in China and Southeast Asia since their inception. As wealth and horizons have expanded, India is now seeing a very rapid increase in interest and use of investment-based and skill-based migration programs. We at NICE have been a front runner in this field starting in 2012 when I met Pankaj, and I've had the privilege of working with hundreds of families through their migration journey. We're very proud to present new and emerging opportunities in this segment to our audience in India, and so now I think we can get into it a little bit. You know, our philosophy is basically the world is your oyster. We really think that these are your choices. You know, you can go to the next slide. We have, as we talk about, we follow basically two different types of programs with a little sort of an in-between. The skilled approach is where you start out with with a job in a specific country. It could be a type of employment that they're looking for, what have you, to fill, like Canada or Ireland or wherever. That matriculates, to do that, you have a work permit. And once you have your work permit, you fulfill certain requirements, you work that job, you're in the country of choice for whatever period of time is required. And then at some point you get your PR. Then it varies from country to country. In Canada, you get your PR as quickly as 9 months. In Ireland, it takes a couple years. It varies from place to place. And we'll talk about the British program in just a minute. And ultimately, after you've had your permanent residency, you for some period of time, and it's usually a shorter period of time, you end up with a passport, which is essentially citizenship in the new country. Next slide. The investment approach is a little bit different. There are three different types here. One we've sort of alluded to, the business visa, work visa type, which we've kind of talked about. Only the little bit of a difference here is that you're investing in a business. Through that business, you get a work visa, and that business is your own, and that's a little bit like what we're going to talk about today. And you get permanent residency and passport. Then moving to the middle of the screen here, there are programs that you actually, by nature of investment, immediately become a permanent resident, and then after some period of time get a passport. And then there are some countries in the world, CYPRUS, Turkey, some of the Caribbean islands, where as soon as you make the investment, you actually become a citizen or receive a passport. Next slide. And these programs vary, as to how this happens and and some of them are crossover. Generally, and we kind of like to say that this is an ebb and flow of immigration programs, and that these various countries, some will have residence programs, some will have citizenship programs, some skilled, some have a combination, some change from one to the other. It all depends on supply and demand. Usually a country is trying to fulfill some sort of economic development need by offering one of these programs, and once that's fulfilled, it tends to get more restrictive and sometimes goes away altogether. Next slide. At NICE Global, we take an institutional approach to investment immigration by working with the colleagues that are the best in their business, whether they be immigration attorneys or consultants, financial advisors, et cetera, et cetera. We want to provide an absolute approach with integrity and, as I say, an institutional approach. Next slide. Just to kind of quickly go through our bit of history, as you mentioned, Pankaj founded NISA in 2010 as a financial advisory and business advisory service. In 2012, I arrived in India, and we got together and talked about expanding into the investment immigration space, and started primarily with the US EB-5 program, and that was more or less our launch here in Delhi. Then in 2014, we formed a relationship with an Atlanta-based company. That company was going to find investment opportunities in the United States and basically do the due diligence service. And then NISA was going to attempt to source investors, which we did for them, with them for some time. And in 2017, we actually, though, decided to go our separate ways. They were recruiting investors from some other places, and we were interested in sort of spreading our wings into some different projects and so forth. So we ended up, we still do a lot of work together, but our main focus is now separate and apart. In 2018 through today, we basically launched NISA Global, which is an assimilation of our expertise, experiences, and relationships of our platform. We've expanded coverage to Canada and Europe's destinations. We've expanded marketing coverage where we source investors now from Southeast Asia, Middle East, Latin America, as well as India. And we've also expanded our presence and our team within India as well. We started with just Pankaj and myself, has expanded into quite a substantial number of people and several offices across India. So we're very well positioned at this point to, as we come out of COVID, to offer many different countries. It used to be if you came to see us, we talked to you about the EB-5 program and a specific project in that, which was all well and fine, and we helped hundreds of families that way. But again, as Pankaj mentioned, things have evolved. People are interested in different countries, and they're not necessarily interested in going an investment route. Sometimes they'd like to just get a job and go there. And so we've expanded to those platforms as well. Next slide. NISA is a Greek word. It means new beginning, and basically our goal is to help our clients and their families make new beginnings by assisting them to become part of and grow within the top economies of the world, expand their businesses, educate their children, help them expand their global or international footprint. As I said, now our business is very much about counseling clients, as opposed to putting a client together with a project. This has become a much more customized sort of business and service, which we enjoy very much. Next slide. And again, where we'd like to talk about where aspirations and investment meet. Next slide. At this point, I'd like to turn it over to Pankaj, who you've heard from at the very beginning. Since 2010, Pankaj has led the firm in helping hundreds of families expand their international footprint. He's widely published and featured in national and international publications such as the Economic Times and Fortune magazine. He's spoken at and or hosted numerous conferences in conjunction with major Indian media, such as the Times of India and CNBC. Pankaj is widely acknowledged as one of the foremost experts in India on the subject of economic migration. He and the entire NISA team work tirelessly to help those interested in migration make a decision of a lifetime. We work very hard in making sure that you make the most well-informed decision possible, and once taken, that the process is transacted flawlessly. For us, it's all about you, and the world is your oyster. And with that, I'll turn it over to our chief oyster opener, Pankaj Joshi.
All right, thank you, Mark. All right, moving on, just as Mark has introduced, we are essentially in three verticals of services. One is investment immigration, second is skilled immigration, and third is we have specialized service in business investment advisory for companies that are looking to expand into the US market. Well, quickly introduce a little bit about what we do in skilled migration. It's a totally separate vertical that we have, but we work in Canada and Ireland. Canada, essentially the process is that we help people find jobs that ultimately qualify them for the PR. If you want any, we offer a full suite of services, including assistance with job placement, visa processing, PR qualification, PR filing, preparation for. We have a personal coach for preparation for the IELTS, etc. If you want to know more, please get in touch with us on the numbers on our website. Ireland, similar thing. We have specialized sectors in Ireland that we are able to get people jobs in, especially in the IT and healthcare space. Again, services, job assistance, job placement, visa, PR qualification, PR filing. It is usually about a 2-3 year process for people to get entering either of these two countries and converting into a PR status. What we really, what we're here to talk about today, and as Mark introduced, there were 3 approaches to investment migration. One is a straight passport by investment. The second, where you first get a PR, and the third, where you first start off with a business migration or a business visa, which then later converts to a PR, which later then converts to a passport. So we'll quickly walk through a couple of these programs before coming back to our focus on the UK. The US, which is obviously the most popular destination for immigrants. It has a program called the EB-5. It now is a $900,000 US dollar minimum investment, or a $1.8 million investment, depending on whether the location of the project is in what is called a targeted employment area or a rural area, or in a non-TEA or rural area. The program does require the investor to just create 10 new jobs for the per investor. There are 2 approaches, what is called the direct investment, the regional center project. The real difference between the 2 is the first one is your own business, which you control. You better create the 10 jobs, full-time payroll jobs, not full-time equivalent jobs. And the second is the regional center program is when they take a larger project, which is qualified for EB-5. And then there's a difference in the job calculation methodology, wherein you take into account direct and indirect jobs using an econometric formula. This is an area of super specialization for us, and we've done over 300 cases in EB-5 till now over the last 8 years. The visa does include investor, spouse, and all unmarried children under the age of 21. It is a straight PR or green card, and you are free to live and work and study anywhere in the United States. So you are not bound by the state or the location in which your investment lies. You can move, or family members can move to other parts of the country as well. The flip side of this program is usually a little slow. It takes a few years for it to actually happen. It's a multi-step process. Usually a 5 to 7 year timeline is what you're looking at to actually be through with the EB-5 program requirements. And the documentation is fairly complex. But since we've run hundreds of cases, like I've said, we understand the documentation very well and have a 100% success track record till date with, I think, out of 300, I would say 270 people are approved and on green cards in the US. And if not, already out of the green card program as well. Canada, another area of super specialization for us. There are several programs we work with. Their business investment programs typically come under 6 categories: self-employed, entrepreneur, owner-operator, intercompany transfer, and a venture capital or startup visa program. All provinces have their own requirements and qualifications for these programs. We work primarily in Ontario and British Columbia, but we do also work pretty strongly now in some of the other programs, some of the other provinces. How it works? Well, this is a very customized solution. One very key thing about Canadian immigration is they're very, very myopic that your background must match the business that you're proposing to do. So if you're from an F&B background, then you can buy, you start off a restaurant, buy a restaurant, qualify. But if you're not from it, they're not going to approve your application. Or ultimately, you'll have an issue in getting the PR. So our real specialization is that we are able to customize this process for you. We do the profiling, business matchmaking, we arrange the exploratory trip, the community referrals, the visa processing, and the PR processing. This is, like I said, we have a team that specializes in, we have a super specialist team in place for Canada. There are various, like I said, there are various provinces and programs around Canada. The minimum investment starts at about 100,000 Canadian and could go up to whatever you want it to be. The 2 main regions of Ontario and British Columbia's minimum investments are at 200 for their base programs, and they have a regional or a pilot program which are at 100 in some of the non-metro areas. It requires a minimum net worth of 300 to 600,000 for the base investment programs. And the fees range usually is about 45 to 75,000 Canadian dollars, plus whatever the visa charges are. It's pretty fast, 6 to 9 months. We can have you in Canada under any of these programs. It includes the family, spouse, and unmarried children under the age of 21. It gives you the benefit of public health and education. The flip side is that you have to live in the province of investment in Canada. So if you're invested in Ontario, you have to be in Ontario. You can't move to British Columbia and vice versa. You have to move to Canada. The program does require, Canada's PR requirement says that you better spend minimum of 2 years out of 5 years for renewal. So you have to move to Canada, especially if you want citizenship. And the only other downside of Canada is that it can really get cold sometimes. Ireland is a country that we are particularly very excited about. We see this as a huge growth opportunity for migrants that are looking to go to a place which offers them, a bright future. It is the only country after Brexit which gives you full access to the EU as well as the UK, because the UK and Ireland have a common travel area. And this treaty has nothing to do with Euro and is not impacted at all by Brexit. There are two programs that are available in Ireland. One is their flagship investor immigration program. The second is their business investment migration and the critical skills. This is a program that we have designed for Ireland. It's something we really understand very well. The flagship investment program requires an investment of about 1 million euros. This usually goes into an enterprise or a fund. They give you the PR for the spouse and all unmarried children under the age of 21. It's pretty fast. It takes a few months to get approval, put in the money, you get the PR about 6 to 9 months from when you start to getting a PR. The PR is very flexible. It requires only to renew it. It only requires you to spend 1 day per year in Ireland. But citizenship does require you to move there. So if you want to get an Irish citizenship, which is when the benefits for EU and UK really kick in, you better be ready to shift to Ireland, because they are pretty stringent about this. The residencies during for qualification for citizenship. Your investment is locked in for 3 to 5 years, so your money will remain invested for a considerable period of time. It's a pretty easy path to passport, and you can get it pretty easily if you live there. The business investment under critical skills is a program that we have designed, and this is a program that we really understand. So essentially, in a nutshell, this is an employment visa into a company that is owned by you. So the way we work is that we take an idea or an expansion idea for an existing business, start off an Irish company, create a job role in that Irish company which matches your qualification, and get you a work permit into your own company. All this is done under an accelerator called Startup Ireland, which is where we are involved, and we work with you for that entire period to actually help you establish your business and grow your business in Ireland. What you get? Well, you get a 2-year work visa. Your spouse will get an open work visa, and your children under 18 can enter and study, live in Ireland, and get access to public education, etc. There is no real minimum investment. The only thing we have to justify is the new Irish company can afford to pay this salary. So what we advise for is that you to start off with a minimum capital outlay for the next 2 years of 100,000 euros. We do charge a fee, which is about 100,000 euros, which includes putting your business plan together, qualifying your profile, creating your entire business structure in Ireland, getting your visa, and accelerating your business for the next 2 years. The visa, as I said, includes spouse and all unmarried children under the age of 18. It's pretty fast to process. We can have you in Ireland within 3 to 6 months. And you're eligible for public education and healthcare from day one. The downside is that you are limited to work for your own company. It's a work visa first. For the first 2 years, you are limited to work for your own company. Thereafter, you are qualified for a PR, and then you can be independent if you choose to. And the citizenship is after 5 years. And once again, if you really want to move to citizenship, you better be living in Ireland. We are working with several companies right now. One is in the loans business, one's in the travel tech business, one's in a fertility company, and one's an investment company. We're helping them migrate their journey and set up base in Ireland. This is again a very, very interesting program. Do get in touch with us if Ireland is of interest to you. The United Kingdom, which is also going to be our feature presentation later. Essentially, there are 3 programs that are available in Ireland right now, in the UK right now: the Tier 1 Investor Visa, a representative of an overseas business visa, and the Innovator Visa. The Innovator Visa is something we've not started working with yet. While this was introduced about a year and a half ago, the rules are not yet completely defined, and therefore we are not comfortable working with this visa category at this point of time. The representative of the overseas business is what we will be discussing in detail a little later. The Tier 1 Investor Visa, which is their flagship visa program, is a financial investment. You can start off with a minimum of £2 million, or 5 or 10. Essentially, the difference is at which point of time can you apply for the PR. With 2 million, 5 years later, you can apply for the PR. With 5, it's 3. And with 10, it's 2. Essentially, you get a resident permit for yourself, your spouse, and all unmarried children under the under the age of 18. It's pretty fast to process, 2 to 6 weeks. Applicants are permitted to be employed anywhere. So with your permit, you don't have to, you can do whatever you want. The citizenship comes a minimum of 6 to 7 years later, minimum of 5 to 6 years later. You have to move to the UK. The requirements for PR qualifications are pretty stringent. When we'll get into all of that. And there are very stringent rules and regulations governing the kind of investments that you can make with that 2 million, 5 million, or 10 million. So it needs to be financial investment in a UK, in a loan capital or share capital or listed portfolio, etc. And there are limitations about the type of shares or bonds that you can buy as well. Portugal is a program that is again getting very popular around the world now because of the flexibility that it offers. There are several programs available in Portugal. The ones we work with are the 350, are the real estate base, and what we used to work with was create the 10 jobs, which we are no longer doing right now because of COVID. Portugal, gives you a golden visa. What is a golden visa? Essentially, it is a right to live and work or do anything you want in Portugal. The visa comes with renewals 2 + 2 + 2 + 2 forever. Every renewal requires that you spend a minimum of 7 days per year during each golden visa period, and you're eligible for a passport after 5 years, with even the minimum stay of 7 days per annum. The good part about this is that it includes 3 generations: investor, spouse, dependent children. There is no age limit, just that they should not be married, and dependent parents and parents-in-law. So it does offer you the ability with a single investment to do 3 generations. It's pretty fast, about a month to get approved. It's pretty simple as well. You get approved, you do your biometrics, you get the golden visa. And thereafter, you're free to live, work, study anywhere in Portugal, with free access to public education and healthcare. In 5 years, you get a passport, which is a full EU passport, which basically means you can thereafter live, work, do whatever you want anywhere in the European Union. The flip side is that now they've introduced a basic Portuguese test. It's pretty easy, but it still needs to be given. I mean, they expect you to be able to read the road signs. And you must remain invested into your underlying investment till you get the passport. We currently have an investment offer, which is a Marriott hotel in Porto. It gives you 2 to 3% per year, and it's a guaranteed buyback in 5 years, or once you get the passport, whichever is later. Now let's quickly run through a couple of citizenship by investment programs. CYPRUS, a full member EU state. It is a 2 million property purchase or a 2 million company investment or something into SEC approved financial assets, or combining all, and 150,000 donation. It is a straight passport. It's a full EU passport, so Cypriot can move in anywhere in the European Union. There are associated fees to it. Malta, another full member EU state, it's slightly lower with a 650,000 contribution. So unlike Cyprus, where you still own the real estate, here the money goes, and you have to either buy a property or rent a property of minimum 16,000 euros per annum, and you have to buy government bonds for 150,000 euros. The downside of Malta is that they give you a residency first, and they take a year to issue you a passport, unlike Cyprus, which gives it to you pretty quickly. There are associated fees to the Maltese program. and changes depending on the number of people that are included. So you can include again um, dependents that are aged 18 and above, and dependents that are aged 56 and above. Okay, so you could take your parents in essentially. New kid on the block in Europe in the making is Montenegro. To make €100,000 donation and buy real estate of 250 in the north or 450 in the south of the country. There are some associated fees with it, but again, it's a straight off citizenship by investment. Turkey, another Europe country, not in the EU yet. I mean, in the EU, but not in the Schengen, etc. yet. This is a great investment. Straight passport, 3-4 months, $250,000 US dollars and above. We have some phenomenal projects available in Istanbul right now, which are great investments with buybacks, etc. So do get in touch if Turkey is of interest. Then, of course, we have the citizenship by investment programs in the Caribbean countries. Dominica, you can either make 100,000 donation or buy a property worth 200,000 and above. Grenada, you can make a donation. They have a couple of funds of 150,000 US dollars and above. Grenada is an E2 country, so a Grenadian citizen will be able to get the US with what is called an E2 visa, except that E2 is a non-immigrant visa, but it'll give you the right to live in America for the rest of your life. St. Lucia also has several ways to do this. You can make a donation, you can buy a property, you can buy government bonds, or you can do a business investment. Okay, now moving on to our feature presentation for the day. The United Kingdom offers a very, very nice program called the Representative of an Overseas Business. We have several clients. We've just signed on some clients that we are working with on this, and there are about 4 to 5 cases that we are working on right now. Very, very interesting visa and of great scope and very easy for qualifying Indian companies and Indian families to do. So the United Kingdom, as you know, capital London, population, lots of Indians, good history with India, they ruled us for several hundred years. It is an advanced economy and high income economy. So what does this UK representative visa do? Right? What is it? Right? Well, what the UK says is that if you're a foreign company that can justify a business expansion to the UK, in terms of that the UK is a market for your product, either for selling or sourcing or service or anything, then they invite foreign companies to send a representative on a business development visa, which is called the Representative of an Overseas Business visa. Essentially, it offers resident status for a qualifying individual and their family members, so spouse who gets an open work permit, and children under the age of 18 at the time of application. And the program attracts that foreign companies send senior executives and managers in order to set up the foreign company's first UK office branch or subsidiary. And there is no minimum requirement or maximum investment that is required. So essentially, you don't have to make any investment. So how does it work? Well, a foreign company with a business idea of the same type of business or reason for expansion to the UK sponsors a person who's been working in the company who cannot be a majority shareholder, can be a shareholder but cannot be majority shareholder with the spouse, to set up and run the UK operations. Okay, it's a pretty easy visa to get if you know how to do it properly. It essentially, you get a 30-day visa to enter. Once you're approved, you enter, you get a 3-year resident permit, which is extendable by 2 years. And at the end of these 5 years, you do have the ability to apply for the PR, which in the UK is called the indefinite leave to remain, or the ILR, in the 6th year. And after 12 months of being on as an ILR, you are eligible to apply for the passport. So it is a migration program which can convert into a passport. Like I said, there is no minimum investment. There is a fee, which is our professional services fee of £50,000 plus the visa fees, and we just get into that. It's a pretty fast processing time, usually about 3 to 12 weeks. It's the most cost-efficient option to move into the UK with no minimum investment amount. There is your dependent partner is free to take up any employment, or basically as an open visa, can study, start a business, take up a job. The downside is that the citizenship is a minimum 6 to 7 years away. For qualification for the PR or the ILR as they call it, you have to spend minimum of 185 days per annum in the UK, and it's 5 years later. And for the passport, in the previous 5 years, when you're applying for the passport, you must have spent minimum of 285 days or more in the UK. The other limitation is that for as the resident, during that first 5 years, the visa holder is limited to work for that very company that has sponsored the visa only, and cannot do any other employment or business. Like I said, it takes time. There are several steps to it. You can apply for a passport, but the good part is that as long as your child is below 18, when you start off on the first visa or the first resident permit, your child is still eligible to get through the ILR and the passport, even if they've turned 18 and above. Okay. And at this point of time, the residency requirement for the 185 days is limited to the visa holder and not the spouse and children. So if the main applicant meets the requirements and the spouse and the children don't, they still get the ILR automatically. The ILR that you get is typically for 2 years. In those 2 years, you must visit the UK once, and the ILR automatically gets renewed and renewed. However, unless you want to apply for the passport, you better be living in the UK and spend at least 280 days and above per annum. So what is the process? I'm sorry, the diagram does look more complicated, and it is actually, it is pretty complicated, and we really understand it, so we can do it. But essentially, we have an eligibility or an evaluation process. We then start off with what we call an engagement, where we help you define and structure your business in the UK, define the plan, explain the reasons for having the representative so that it can be approved. We then file your application, get an approval, get you the visa. When you enter, get your stamping done, get you everything done from your police registration to your insurance registrations, etc. We help you with a 5-year immigration strategy planning, make sure that you do stepwise compliances that will be required for both the renewal as well as the qualification of the INR. We help you for the renewal. We do your we work with you for your renewal, we work with you for your PR, and we work with you for your citizenship application. As I said, there are fees. Our fees are that evaluation is free. Engagement, we start off with a £10,000 retainer. Over the next 5 years, we charge you £40,000 for our services. This is included till the ILR. And then there is an additional fee for the application of the passport. There are associated fees for visas and the insurance and health services. So what does the UK entity need to do? Like I said, it's a branch, right? So the UK entity does not need to rent an office. It does not need to create any jobs, does not need to achieve any revenue or profit targets, right? So there is no minimum milestone that the company has to do. The person can work from home. The person can be the only employee in the UK. And the UK entity must remain in good standing and requires to evidence that it has generated business or it has been actively pursuing business opportunities in the UK. Of course, it's good that there are some revenues and profits in the company. What are the advantages and disadvantages? Well, the advantage is pretty fast. 3 to 12 weeks will have you in the UK. Well, sorry, 3 to 12 weeks will have the approval, and then the UK thereafter. It's the most cost-efficient option. There is no minimum investment. The dependent partner is free to take up employment, start their own business, or study, or has an open visa. There is a very basic English language requirement. I think most people in India that have been to English medium school will pretty easily clear these exams. The main applicant needs to maintain the 185 days for the whole family to get the PR. The flip side is citizenships after 6 to 7 years. You must live in the UK for the ILR and for the passport. And the main applicant must work for their own business throughout the length of their visa and cannot take up any other form of employment. We are working on several cases right now. We've done a few, and our partners have done over 300 cases till date in the ROOB category. We are working on several categories right now. We are working with a firm which is in the automotive sector. We are working with a firm which is in the real estate and transportation sector. We are working with a firm which is in the software services space. This is a visa that we are getting a lot of inquiries for, and so we thought we'd do another webinar on this. And it is a visa that any good standing Indian company with certain history and with a justifiable reason to have a UK office can get quite easily. Okay, so at the end of this, which program is suitable for you, or which program are you suitable for? So many options around the world, and as Mark keeps saying, the world is your oyster. How do you decide where to go? Well, we at NISA feel that this is a very scientific and objective approach. We think that there are 5 factors that we need you to answer or understand for yourself. First, what is the objective? Why do you really want to go? What do you want to do there? You know, what are the destinations? Where do you want to go? What's your number 1, 2, 3, and number 4 choice? Timelines, how soon or how late do you want to go? What is your investment threshold? How much money are you willing to put at risk for this? And who all do you want to include? We recently had we have signed up a client who is taking her elderly parents with her. So, it depends. The programs, the structures depend on who you are, what you want to do, and who all you want to include in their application. We at NISA, like I said, follow a very scientific approach. First, we do an interview and discovery process. We do an identification and selection and placement of the investment. We work through the immigration and transition, and through the continuity and return of investment at the end of the cycle. At NISA, we and our collaboration, our teams, our people that are in NISA, our partners that we've been associated with for a long period of time, have very deep knowledge and roots in the world of investment immigration in the home countries that help our families successfully navigate the complexities of the investment immigration journey. Like Mark said, the world is your oysters. We're here to help you crack it open. So, we're open for question and answers. You can reach us or WhatsApp us in general at 99100966169, or get in touch with us over email at contact@NISA-Global. That's pretty much it. Our head office in Gurgaon, and that's pretty much it for the day. And we're open for question and answers. I am going to start to look at the questions right now. So just give me a moment to open the Q&As. Just a second. Mark, if you'd like to chime in a little bit till then about the UK and the opportunities or something, just give me a minute while I'm compiling all the questions. Okay, just give me a second.
Sure. Yeah, and I think without just kind of reiterating what Pankaj was touching on, there was an awful lot of information that was put forward there in a bunch of slides, and so. But I guess in summary, the idea is that the UK is looking, has this great program called this Representative Overseas Business. So if you have a business in India, that's legitimate business that has a legitimate reason to have a representative in the UK that can be helping you with your business, and we can help you, I guess, think creatively to some extent as to how that can all work. But the process itself is very straightforward, very easy. There's no minimum investment. I mean, there's some cost, and that you've got to set up business, but it's possible you could do from home. There are no real requirements as to performance in terms of revenues or so on and so forth. But you do have to be able to evidence and illustrate that you are doing business for your overseas business. So this is, I know, for our partners that work with this program quite extensively, this has become an extremely popular way for people that want to migrate to the UK, and then through this can ultimately become, British passport holders. So this has become a very, very popular program.
Yep, it truly is. And Okay, so let's answer some of the questions, okay? And I'm going to try to order them in some kind of a flow as I put them together, depending on the different topics that they are on. Yeah. Right. So the question really is around the shareholding for someone to qualify, right? Because the rules say that you cannot be a majority shareholder. So what's the maximum percentage? Well, to begin with, it needs to be below 50%, okay? So that you're not the you're not the majority, okay? But even if you're below 50%, but you're the largest shareholder, there have been problems. So you need to be somewhere in the 30 to 35% is what is considered to be a safe zone to be, okay? So one, between you and between the applicant and the spouse, they should not be the largest. And two, typically 30 to 35% is acceptable to the home office, where they see, okay, someone who owns joint, 30, 35%, and the others that are there, so they're okay. Okay.
There's Pankaj, when you get a second, I have another question that someone that couldn't get into the system here. So when you have a break, let me know.
Okay. All right. So what roles can it be? Can the person be a liaison officer? Yes, a person can be a liaison officer. There is no office premises requirement. There is no real setup requirement, like I said. So yes, liaison could be a qualifier depending on what the business is and what the liaison officer is required to do in the UK and justify why you need to have a liaison officer in the UK.
Pankaj,
Yeah.
the question I have is from someone that's asking if you're an ROOB, if you're representing a company there, can you also start a new business or company or make a new investment holding while you're under the ROOB program?
So not independent of your visa. So let's say the base company that has sponsored your visa, if they want to start something else, you can definitely expand it. But you as an individual will not be able to start, as a visa holder can't just start up an independent company and start doing something else as well. But within the gamut of the original parent company, and yes, you can. Of course, your spouse will also have an open work permit, so your spouse can always start off the business in the spouse's name. Does that help answer the question, Mark?
Yeah, I think that hits it on the head, and I think that's a very elegant solution. In other words, you as an individual can't go off and do something else while you're under that representative visa, but if your company decides to do something else that you're representing, then you can sure go off and do that. So,
Yep.
again, with certain parameters and, as long as it's not too off the wall.
Yeah, is there any, then the question is, what is the size of the Indian business, right? Well, there is again, there's no real size, okay? I mean, but it needs to be a sizable company. So at least, depending on, you need to be able to justify that you can afford a person. So, the company's turnover, we've seen cases that start about £500,000 pounds and above. Typically, a couple of £1 million of gross revenues up to is good enough. The registered office of the company should be outside the UK, and the type of business that it intends to do in the UK should be similar to the type of business that they have in the foreign country. Again, please understand that this is a very subjective visa, which is where specialization knowledge comes into play, because there is no defined parameters. Right? It's not like a 10 crore company and above is qualified and anything below is not qualified. So there needs to be, it's a combination of multiple factors, and it's a very customized thing that is done by our team. So there is no right answer. But yes, if you're too small and your turnovers are 10 lakhs or 20 lakhs or 50 lakhs, it'd probably be very difficult to explain how your company can afford a person in the UK to start.
So Pankaj, I have another question that I've gotten in here. So does this work for service businesses as well as, other types of businesses, chartered accountancy, tax advisory, all that sort of stuff?
Well, tax advisory again is something which comes into regulated space. So we will have to talk to the person and figure out how we can do this for tax advisory or legal, but it can work. Yes.
Yeah.
Can a company sponsor more? Why have a question? Can you do more than one ROB? No, any one company can only have one representative visa outstanding. Okay, but after 5 years, when the first ROB visa moves on to a PR and is out of being an ROB visa holder, the same company can qualify a second ROB. Okay, or if the ILR or if the person resigns. Yeah. However, this um, may change, right? I mean, this is a program today, so it may change. Okay, there are some specific questions coming in from people that are giving me descriptions about their companies and their business, so I am not going to discuss this in the open forum. And to all those that have given that, we will be coming back to you individually with responses to your particular situation. Okay, well, that's it from now for today. Thank you, Mark, for being there on the webinar as well as here at the office in India, and for the last 7-8 years they've been working together. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for your time again this week on our weekly webinar on global investment immigration. As I said, this is a weekly webinar every Wednesday at 3 p.m. that we host, covering some country or the other. Next week is going to be an interesting webinar that we have, which is on, it's more of a chat, really, with a couple of colleagues and partners about their journey over the last several decades, some of our team members, partners, and their journey over the last decades in the world of investment immigration, with perspectives coming in from people that are selling in China, that are selling in Southeast Asia, that are selling in India like us, Middle East, and people. So that'll be an interesting one. Followed by, we're going to do one on Portugal. We're going to do one the week after. So stay tuned, and please, ladies and gentlemen, spread the word. Help us spread the good word about investment immigration. And if there are any friends or family that could be interested in learning about this program, this is a free webinar. We do talk about several programs around the world. So do feel free to tell them about it, tell them where to register, and come for our webinars. Thank you so much for today, ladies and gentlemen, and Mark for the webinar, and our team for helping us host it. Have a good evening, and thank you once again for today's attendance.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.